had you all, I had them pass out a card for everyone. I hope everyone will take one and slip it in your purse or your wallet. Keep it beside you. It is a reminder of who and what you really are. And sometimes when we find ourselves in a place where we need to be reminded, take this little card out. This is a message from God to you today. You are loved. You are loved beyond compare. You are loved unconditionally. You are loved for eternity. You are God's beloved. So it is, and it always shall be. Today I'm going to share with you a little bit about my life and my path here. And I'm going to begin with telling you some things that I believe. And then as I speak and go on and tell you a little bit about myself, see if you can't connect some of those things that I believe, not only with my life, but with your own life. They may not be the same experiences, and they may be a little different here and there, but somehow I think you'll find that there's a message in all of this for you. So let me begin. There was a little girl who was painting a picture, and her mother said, "That's a lovely picture, Isabel. What is it?" And the little girl said, "It is God." And her mother said, "Oh, Isabel, no one knows what God looks like." And Isabel said to her mother with shining eyes and a big smile, she said, "They will now." That's the faith of a little child. I believe one power and one presence. I believe that power is God, and that God is good, and that all things are birthed in that energy and power of God, including you and including me. I believe that love is innately born in us, that it never leaves us, and it never fails. I believe in reincarnation. I believe that anything that is born out of this energy continues forever. That means you, that means me, that means every earthly thing, that all of life is a cycle, and that cycle goes round and round and round until once we've come back again. I also believe in angels and miracles. I believe that we are never where we are not supposed to be, that there are no accidents and no coincidences. I believe also in the power of prayer, of gratitude, of forgiveness, and of letting go. All of us, each one of us, is unique, I believe. We have come here with gifts and talents that have been given to us by God. They are to give back to the world. Now, these things don't need to be large things like the great artist or the wonderful musician or vocalist, but even simple things like being a good mother, a good wife, a teacher, perhaps a good sales clerk. But it's all a gift. It is all within you, given to you at the time that you experience your new birth here on our earth to give to this wonderful place that we are in. I believe that God lives within you. I believe that God is within everything. And I believe that even though it does not always look like it, that God loves us and will help us through everything. And now my story begins. Let's go back to that little girl that was painting that painting. You know, all of life is a perception. It's how we perceive things that we are going to receive things. And that little girl, with her paintbrush and her beautiful colors, was painting what she perceived as God. Those things that we perceive, we can perceive in two ways. We can say they are gifts from God, beautiful, glorious, prayerful gifts, like a beautiful sunrise, sunset, a river with rocks and mountains surrounding it, a river with so much power in it that you can believe that this is God's power and that it is moving through everyone and everything. Or you can perceive that it's just a river, it's just a sunset, it's just that wonderful tree that grows in the sequoias, so strong, so old, so stately. Or it's just a tree. I am blessed because I was born into this world with parents and grandparents that taught me how to begin to see things in the light and the love of God. I never had to change my mind about things. I do not ever remember a time when I did not believe in a God. I was a little girl when my mother would tell me stories about the love of God and how He loved me so much and that He loved all of us. I was a little girl when my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, started dropping affirmations. Now, I wasn't really sure what those things were that she was talking about, but I remember them to this day. And I remember one that she told me probably when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I was having a little trouble somewhere along the line, as we all do. And she simply said very kindly to me, "Anne, you will only be as happy as you allow yourself to be." Now that's a tremendous remark. Think about that. Can you think back on your life when you were not very happy? What was inside you that said, I'm not happy. But here's the message. You can be happy only as much as you will allow yourself to be. Knowing that God lives within me has not made me pompous, but humble, thankful, and grateful that there's something within me that can be shared with others. And that's really how I started out in life, and that's how I hope that I am continuing my life. My parents were wonderful parents, but they never attended church, and I never understood that. But their church was at home and within themselves, and within my sister and I, because they helped us understand what God's love was really like. And my mother decided, evidently, well on into her life, that she was walking a certain path, and that we all walk our own path. And she let me discover what it was, my path. I attended Sunday school with all my little friends. I went to the Baptist church and the Methodist church, and I went to Jewish temple, and I went to the Presbyterian church. But nothing ever resonated with me. I did not understand or believe some of their beliefs. I never believed in health, in hell. I never really believed in a heaven per se. I was taught that the things we do to ourselves and through us create a heaven or a hell. So as I wandered these churches, I thought, this is not for me. I know there are more answers out there than these people can give me. And eventually, I drifted away from that. I was about 18. I was really 14 when I fell in love with my first husband. Now, 14, I can't imagine my daughter saying to me at 14, I love this boy and I'm going to marry him. But that's exactly what I wanted. So I went to my daddy and I said, I love Donald and he loves me. And I was a freshman in high school and I want to get married. And my wise father said to me, you may do that after you finish high school. You have a little more socialization under your belt. And then if you come to me and you say, I still feel the same way, and he still feels the same way, you will have my blessing. So at 18, I went back to my daddy and I said, Daddy, I still feel the same way and we still want to get married. All right, I promised you that if that's your path, I bless you in it. Well, in the meantime, Donald went into the Navy to wait for me to graduate from high school. And he was stationed in the state of California, San Diego. Now, I was a little girl that did not like winter. I would walk to school. I would wear all those awful clothes you have to wear in the winter. I would peel them off when I got to school, and I would think, oh, please, let me be where it's warm. Ah, Let me be where it's warm. We were to be married in October, but Korea began, and Donald could not get home for a wedding. But he'd saved a little money, and he asked me if I would fly west and marry him. And he had a cousin that lived here in San Diego, and she would board us while he was here and when he was home from off duty. So I went to my parents, who had never flown anywhere, had barely traveled out of the little town where we lived in Massachusetts. I want to fly to California. I want to marry Don. I've been waiting forever. You want to go where? I want to live in San Diego, where it is warm. Please, may I go? Well, said my mother and father, all right, I'll take you to New York City and put you on the plane, says my mother. So we took the train from this little town in Massachusetts and off to California I was going. All the way on the train. Are you sure this is where you're meant to go? Are you sure this is the path you want to take? You're very young, you know. Yes, I know. Yes, this is. I feel it in my heart. All right, she said. She put me on the airplane. I flew to Chicago. Chicago? Wow, that's a big city. So I wandered the Chicago airport for a little bit. Didn't see much of Chicago, but the airport. Got on the plane to head west. Oh, I was in a window seat. One engine on this wing and one engine on this wing started fire. This was a winged plane with engines. Do you remember those? Okay. So I flew, we turned around and went back to Chicago. Had to sit down until we could get a new plane. In the meantime, I was going to be late for Dawn in the San Diego airport. So I made a telephone call, and they had assured me we would get into San Diego at such and such a time, several hours late. So I was all set, got back on that plane, got the wings going and the engines going, no problem now, till we hit L.A. We had to sit down in L.A. Remember, I have never traveled anywhere out of Athol, Massachusetts. Sorry, we can't fly into San Diego. Much like they couldn't the other night when my granddaughter was coming home from St. Louis after a business trip. You'll have to get on a bus and go to San Diego. Okay, I'll do that. I'm anxious to get there. It's going to be warm, and my sweetheart is waiting for me. So, onto the plane onto the bus I got. Just before I got on the bus, my name came over the loudspeaker. Would Ann Batchelor please step to the phone, such and such? Ann Batchelor, you have a call. All right. I went and picked up. Where are you? You're late. I have to get on a bus, and I have to get on right now because I don't have time to talk. I'll meet you at the bus station. No, I'm staying home. Get a cab and come to this address. Okay, I will. I got on that bus. I came to San Diego, and it was raining. Oh. the man, that the driver of the taxi cab, said, "Oh, we're having terrible rain." He didn't know what rain was. I've come from a town where it rained buckets, not just mist. And I said, "Oh, this is nothing for rain. Take me to this address." "Oh, let's see, where is that?" "I don't know where it is. You're the driver. I'm the passenger. You find out where it is." In the meantime, there were sailors all over the street. And here was this young woman who was 18, trying to get into a cab and trying to get where she wants to go, and they were trying to pick me up. Whereupon the driver intervened and I got in. We drove to this little place called Frontier Housing, which was way down where now the sports arena is here in San Diego. And finally, after, this was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I should have arrived in San Diego about 4 in the afternoon. Finally, I was in the arms of my sweetheart. And what we had intended to do when we got here is to be married. So I realized that I had not had a blood test, and that then, I don't know about now, but then you had to have blood tests before you could even get your license. So the first thing we did the next morning is get up and go and have a blood test for Anne. And then my husband's cousins took me to Tijuana. Tijuana! Now I ask you, I'm telling you all of this so that you understand that I trusted in what was going on in my heart. And I knew this was the path I was to walk. We were married on December 5th in a little Baptist church in the back of the Baptist church on a Wednesday evening when they were having prayer ministry, and all that was going on up here, and the minister was in the back marrying me. Now, I was a little disappointed in that because I expected to be married up here, even if it was just me and the groom and the minister. But it was done back there. But that wedding, that marriage lasted 40 years. Now, what if I hadn't done it? What if I hadn't trusted my God and my gut? I did. In that marriage, I had 3 beautiful children. When my first child was born, I felt so blessed. I looked in that child's eyes and I saw God. It was the very first time I really put a name to what God is. God is in each one of us. As you look into each other's eyes, look into the eyes of God, because that's where you're looking. We all love each other. We all have significant others and special ones. Most of us have children or someone very uniquely close to us. But I'm talking about a love that is beyond all that. I'm speaking of a love that is never failing, that gives us what we desire and what we want if we will will allow it. I'd already turned that page over. We all have dreams and we all have desires. And they all come from God. And the stronger that desire, the stronger that dream, the more it is yours to have. But I'm here to tell you that because we have free will, which is also a gift from God, we can take those desires, we can take those dreams, and we can throw them away. We don't have to use them. We don't have to do anything with them. Or we can open our hearts to the gifts that have been given. And the moment that we do that, the whole universe steps forth and says, she or he want this desire that I have placed in their heart. She or he has taken the first step. I will see that these good works are completed. Now, my first desires were to be a good wife, a good mother, and a teacher. And through having these children, I took my last child to a preschool that was given in a college. And it was a parent-teacher class that some of you have taken, I'm sure. And I just enjoyed it so much, and I couldn't get enough of what that teacher was teaching. And she would have a part of the day with the family, with the parent, and she'd have the other part of the day with the children out in the playground. And we'd all go out and observe and so forth. And one day this lovely lady, who was younger than I, said to me, you know, you ought to be a teacher. Ah, I ought to be a teacher. One of my dreams. How do I go about doing that? I hadn't been out of high school for over 15 years. I had not yet been to college. I had raised a family. I had been the good wife. I had been the good mother. And now, here was my other dream. So, this young woman said, I will take you and show you how to register for classes. And why don't you begin in early childhood education? Ah, okay. So I went and I registered. And I began those classes. I went home first, told my husband that I was going. My youngest child had then gone on to kindergarten when I started college. And I had a very dear friend in the neighborhood. We raised our kids together. And she was an educator. And I said to her, Bobby, I have a dream, and this dream is coming true. And I'm going to go to college. And she stepped forth and said, putting her arms around me, as the universe did, and I will help you in any way I can. If you are struggling in any way, getting back into the swing of homework, of lectures, any of that, if you need help in the middle of the night with an answer of a question, please know I am here for you. I tell you that had she not been, I might not have even got through the first semester. But that woman, who is my dear friend today, we've been friends for 65 years, has been at my side through everything. But she is the great person that helped me absolutely get through my college education. But while I'm doing all these classes, in comes another woman. And this other woman said, "Why are you studying this?" "Because children are my passion, and I want to be able to serve them through teaching." Well, I've just started a little preschool, and I'm looking for someone just like you to be my 2-year-old teacher. Are you interested? Am I interested? You see how the universe opens up step by step? Do you see how everything in life is divine order? From there, I went on. I worked her school. I was then hired as a director for 3 other different schools. I worked one school for 9 years until I knew it was time to move and go out on my own. And I began my own in-home infant preschool. And I did that for 10 years. That was 37 years that the universe supported me in everything I wanted and needed to do to become a teacher. Now, here's one more story I'm going to tell you, because it relates to where I am here today. In the last school I taught, or I directed, one of the teachers came to me and she said, "Mrs. Dunican, would you come out on the playground a minute? There's something going on out here and I want you to see it." "Yes, I'll be right there." There was this adorable little girl, about 4 years old, and this woman said to me, "Just watch." Her name was Lynn. She said, "Just watch, see what's happening." She was going around the schoolyard, and she was going up to children, and she said, "Do you believe in Jesus?" And the little kid would look at her like, "Who's Jesus?" Or, some would say yes, but most of them would say, Who? Where is he?" And then she would say, "Come with me." And she'd take them and put them in the circle. And she'd say to that child, now mind you, this little girl is only 4. You don't believe in Jesus, burn in hell." I was heartbroken because she had been indoctrinated so early in life. So I said to Lynn, the teacher, "Okay, supervised play." I clapped my hands and said, "All right, everybody, come over here to Mrs. Dunican." And we started something else. I don't even remember what game it was, what we did. But I was going to break that up right away. I've never forgotten it. I can see that little girl in my mind's eye now. I pray that God helped her out of that belief somewhere along the line. I didn't feel it was my duty as a public servant in that particular case to do what I wanted to do about it. So, conversation began between Lynn and I. And Lynn said, how do you feel about that? So I began to tell her how I felt that there was no such place as hell, and that I didn't believe in any devil worship or any of that kind of thing. I said, it's all right if others want to, but I don't believe that children should be indoctrinated so young in anything like that. So she said, you sound to me like somebody that would enjoy my brother-in-law's church. I said, your brother-in-law's church? Yes. She said, he believes only in positive living. And he believes only in things that are uplifting and that God lives within. I said, where is that church? She said, the name of the church is Christ Church Unity of El Cajon. I said, Unity? I know about Unity. There's a Unity church in El Cajon? Yes, there is. I'll be there the next Sunday. Whereupon, she gave me the address. She gave me a daily word, which I had already. Because, you see, my mother and my grandmother were all connected to Unity and all metaphysics. They were metaphysicians. They believed in all the great philosophers, had read all their works. But they gave me the right to find my own place. Well, I walked through the doors of the little chapel on Sunday morning, and I felt like I had come home. I wanted to bend down and kiss the floor. I was so sure I had found the place to be. And it was true, I had. And that Sunday, or maybe 2 or 3 Sundays later, as I had walked out, and Arthur was greeting people at the door, one of the ladies ahead of me said, this church is just like popcorn. You cannot get enough of it. And that's exactly the way I was feeling. That's exactly how I felt. You had to be here. You had to hear the message. Just as I have to be here today, I have to hear the message by all people that are speaking here. The love and the energy that is here is absolutely overwhelming. And you know, I have heard people, as I greet the door, feel the love here. Feel the forgiveness, the joy, the love here. Well, I found another love here too. And her name was China Williams. And she and I were taking classes on Unity together. And she said to me, I'm going to Unity Village, and I'm going to be ordained. Wouldn't you like to do that with me? And I said, yes, I'd love to. But I'm not in a position to do that right now. And I have a family to continue to raise. But I do know that is the path I'm going to walk one day, just when divine order sets in. So China went to Unity Village. She became a Unity minister. And then she said to me, Anne, wouldn't you and your family like to support me in my own little church? I'm going to start a church in Spring Valley. It will be called the Living Church of Christianity. And so my family and I did go to Unity in Spring Valley. And while we were there, my husband embraced Unity and all of its philosophies. He became, not only that, he became a head usher here, but he became the head usher there. He became the handyman there. He did similar things that our minister here does. He did in our little church. And another woman joined the church over there, and her name was Helen Baker. And Helen said to China one day, you know, you have a couple of people here that I think would make good ministers. How about we teach some classes? Divine order is setting in. And Mary, Helen, and China, for 6 years, every Wednesday night, every weekend that we could, got together, and we studied not only unity, but religious science, because Helen Baker was a religious science teacher. And though we have different belief systems in some ways, in many ways, we are very, very compatible. And so Helen said, when we get through with all these classes and everyone has passed all their tests and done all their applications that I'm going to require for them to do, we had to learn to speak, we had to learn to be prayer chaplains, we had to learn to do meditation, teach Sunday school, which I had done here already, and I was a director here for a while because I had all that background that I had as a director of preschools. On August 3rd, 1993, we had an ordination in our little church, and I was ordained as a religious science minister. I became China's associate, and we had that church for about 18 years. When China one day came to me and said, I'm going to retire. Perhaps you'd like to take the church. And what I neglected to tell you is that at the end of 40 years, I had lost my beloved Don. And I grieved for 3 years. But through my grieving, I used all my unity principles, and they brought me through that very, very well. That and the help of all my church friends and of my own personal friends. So, and I'm getting a little ahead of the story, and I'd like to back up just a little bit because I had another miracle in my life, and it has to do with a very special thing that happened to me. When I was here, before I became a minister, I started a course here called Learning to Love Yourself. Some of you had been in it, and some of you know of it, I'm sure. It started in 1972 here, and I began in the little church, and I had read an article, and it was called Learning to Love Yourself Thin. Well, at that time, I wasn't very thin, and I thought, I want to teach this class. So I called the first meeting, and I told everybody what it was going to be about, and it would deal with the unity principles, and that it would be a spiritual class as well as a uplifting class, and a class that we would share all the things that were going on in us. Because I felt that those things that are going on in us were why we were not thin. And I discovered that. I discovered that by listening to people, by really listening. And my intuition, which I also believe is from God, began to say to me, listen to what they're saying. Change the name. And I cut off living thin. And I just said, let's learn to love ourselves. And to this day, there are 4 of us still meeting. We grew, we had We had 20, 30 people from this church at a time. For years, we had men and we had women. We accomplished all kinds of things. I can't go into them all now, but we did. We accomplished all kinds of things for people. God was there. He was present in every single situation. God's love is powerful, powerful. And then one night in this course, one Monday, we met on Monday night. One Friday night, my telephone at home rang. Hello? Is this Ann Dunican? Yes, it is. My name is Fred. Are you still with Love Yourself? Yes. We meet every Monday night. Are you interested in coming to Love Yourself? I will be there on Monday night. Great. We'll be glad to see you and welcome you. I look forward to meeting you, Fred. Fine, thank you. My friend Ginny Bedell, who also belonged to this church and was one of our first supporters in Love Yourself, she and I used to ride here together. So she would come, or I'd pick her up, or she'd pick me up, and that night we were sitting in her car, and we were just talking about getting ready to come inside, and I looked up, and here comes this little man, not much taller than I am, had an Eisenhower jacket on, a skull cap, and I said to Ginny, "Here's Fred." "How do you know that's Fred?" "You've never even seen him. This is Fred. We have to go in." Well, all right. So we got out of the car, and we went, unlocked the door. We met in what then used to be the library in Hammond's Hall. And there was a group of women and men came and sat around. But when Fred and my eyes connected, I knew I was going to get a message. Have you ever met somebody that you cannot break away from? You know you've either been with them before, or there's something special you've got to hear, or you're going to have a special relationship with this person. So the people came in, I introduced Fred, and the questions were, "Oh, hi Fred, where are you from?" "Everywhere." "Oh, and what do you do? What kind of work do you do?" "My father's." And then on, he was very evasive. And we began the class. And at that time, my husband had lost his job, had to have surgery, and he was not in a good space. And consequently, I was having trouble with my space. And in this class, we used to share all kinds of things that went on. So I began sharing because it was my turn. Whereupon, I couldn't stop looking at Fred, and I was sharing, and suddenly he got up. He came over to me. He took both my hands in his hands, and he looked at me and he said, "Ann, you know that out of the muck and the mire of life comes beautiful lotus blossoms. And you must trust this also. Now let go and let God work through it." Whereupon he looked, he left my hand. I followed him to the door, and he disappeared. I mean, he was gone. He wasn't that way. He wasn't that way. I didn't see him up there because I didn't look up there, but he was gone. I cannot tell you how I knew again miraculous power of God. If we will just let him in. And I say him because that's what we all say. God is a him or a she. But God is energy. God is spirit. God lives within us. God gives us exactly what we need when we need it. I believe I was met that night with one of God's angels, and no one can tell me differently. And I'll bet each one of you, in some way, has met an angel on your life trip. Please, if you take nothing away from this, please know that God's love is beyond compare of anything. Anything. Let us pray. Thank you, God. Thank you, God, for the message I was to give you today. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for being in the hearts of each person here. Thank you for the life that I have led and the life that I am leading. May I always be of service to you and one of your messengers. And so it is. Amen.
Open this up for any questions.
Oh, please. Oh. But I believe there are no mistakes in the universe, and whatever situation we find ourselves in, I think God has led us there to learn what we need to learn.
I believe that too.
And that takes a lot of humility sometimes.
Yes. And sometimes our humanness gets in the way and we forget. But I believe it's these little things that come to us, sometimes big things that come to us, that are there to awaken us. You see, I think when we are born with all knowledge. We come in with all knowledge. And I believe it is you and I that program that out of our infants that come to us. We say things like, oh, did you dream that? Well, how do you know that, honey? I had a child that was born that would tell me the most interesting facts when he was 3 and 4 years old. I was napping one afternoon, and I should say I was trying to nap, and he was playing with his cars on the floor. He came, Mommy, Mommy, Mommy. What is it, Rodney? What is it, honey? Mommy, when you die, your bodies don't go to heaven, do they? This is a 4-year-old. I never had a discussion of death with him. It's those kinds of things that we program out of children. My granddaughter, April, when my mother died, she was very close to her, and she was the very first great-grandchild, 4 years old. I went away after that for a little while just to have some respite. And she had her mother call me, and she said, Gigi, Gigi. What is it, April? You sound excited. What is it? Gigi. She called me Grammy, and her great-grandmother, Gigi. Gigi says to tell you all is well. Now, this is a 4-year-old. I said to her, where was Gigi? In her room in the corner. This child has those kinds of things going on all the time, and she's an adult woman. But what if I had said, honey, that was just in your mind, or that was some little thing that happened? Don't pay attention to that. You see, that's how we do that. And we don't mean to. I'm not saying that we mean to. But we do those things if we don't watch ourselves. Anyone else?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about how the will of God is going when you reached at the space that two angels came and they say to you, I wanted to find it, it was what was the time, how old you
How
were,
old was I?
yeah, for the accomplishment of those two angels came to you and they teach you such as.
If I understand you, you want to know how old I was at that time. I think I was probably at the time that Fred, the angel, came. I think I was about 50. But I've had all kinds of things in my life that have touched me, that I believe, and I strongly believe, that I have entities and angels that live around all of us all the time. I believe we are always connected with those that we have always known. And somewhere in life, I believe I have known you. So you see, these are strong beliefs. But these are things that I grew up knowing from the time I was a little girl. And though when I was an infant, I couldn't put any names to it or anything, but it was in my heart. And it's been in my heart all my life. So when I meet new people, I don't care if you're in the grocery store or you're here in this church or somewhere else. I met a woman today in this church. I don't know whether any of you noticed that I suddenly had a cough and I had to leave while Brian was first speaking because I didn't want to interrupt. I went out the door. This woman followed me out the door. She was crying. And I said, "May I help you?" And she said, "Oh, I'm just having a sad moment." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. If I may help, I would like to." She said, "Just pray for me." And I said, "Let's do that." And I took her aside. You see, those incidents, I believe, are divine order. They are things that come into our lives. We don't even know when they're going to happen, but they happen as they are supposed to.
Yeah, thank you. Another question. You said when you were a teacher at Sunday school, okay?
When I was a teacher in preschool.
Okay, Sunday school. Sunday school.
Oh, in Sunday school.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I wanted to know this church of El Cajon. How many years you are in this church?
Oh, how many years have I been at this church? I was a founding member of this church. I came here in 1972, and Arthur started this church in 1961. I think I was here at the end of, what did I say? 69, excuse me. Yeah, the plaque out there says 1969, and I think I came here at the end of 1971. And we were just a little church meeting in the chapel over there.
Okay.
But I had studied, I really had been reading and studying unity for a long time. And my grandmother and my mother had been adding to that for years and years. So when it came time to teach Sunday school and direct Sunday school, we had wonderful materials here to teach the children with. June also taught Sunday school and directed it here. And there are many others that have in the past and are still doing it. So we had the materials, and then we had what was in our hearts to give to the children. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. We want to tell you that we are very pleased to have your family here. And I would like to tell you, I said this today at the table when I was watching your family. You have wonderfully behaved children. They know exactly how to behave. They are friendly. They are smiling all the time. You are to be congratulated, you and your wife.
We have time for a last question. Anybody?
More just of a comment, because it's such a feel-good kind of a thing. When you mentioned that we came here with everything in us already, just
Yes.
like we have them now.
Yes.
And when my granddaughter was born, my father was not very happy about it because my daughter was so young. They had gone on a trip. He was very ill. They came back from the trip, and she was 2 months old when she met him. And he was feeble. He wanted to hold her. He just stared at her. He was so close to her. And I have a picture of the two of them about 2 weeks before he passed, staring at each other. And honestly, you could feel that God was looking at God. That's exactly, it was like he said, I'm going where you came from.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, I still feel that so strongly,
course
that
you
it was
do.
that connection was right there. And I said, oh my God, that's us.
Yes.
We're all that.
Yes.
But they were so right there. She looked at him and saw him going where she was coming from. And he was moving on where she had been, and she would be there someday too.
Yes.
You know, it's just, I do believe that so
Oh.
strong, that saw that really clearly.
And I believe it with you, Donna, because my husband and my last grandchild had the same experience. And he passed away just 6 weeks after that. Yeah. So that, yes, you're right. Thank you very much for being such a wonderful audience, and I'm
Thank
glad
you,
I could
Reverend Ann.
share with you.
You know, you're such a model and example to us.
Oh,
You know, you're very well loved. And one of the things that I was struck by when I first came here was just how you have this gift of service. It's very much a part of your life. You can tell that that's, you have created a life around the service that you do, and you're always doing it.
If you ask me what I want from life, I will tell you without hesitation. Days of joy and peace and harmony, where all people live as one great nation. I will care for you. I will see you through the bad times. I will care for you. I will dare to do the kind thing now. I will take my brother by the hand. I will close my eyes to indignation, so together we can make a stand. No division, we are one great nation. I will care for you. I will see you through the bad times. I will care for you. I will dare to do the kind thing now. kind thing, do the right thing. I will care for you. I will see you through the bad times. I will care for you. I will dare